Thank you, and again, thank you for putting this on today. We were just talking about the timing of this, and I know that I honor a lot of the activists that are in our country that are fighting for this movement to be relevant, and I'm talking about the violence, the end to gun violent movement. One of the things that's making it hard for me today is that my nephew is the reason for my protest. He would have been 27 years old tomorrow. And he died at this hospital on September 26th of 2010. That's what created the activism that I do today. He was my priority. He was a kid. He had just graduated. He lived in Portland his whole life. He had brothers and sisters. My brother was his dad. Our families knew his families for generations. The life that we live in this country is not supposed to be. Our children aren't supposed to die from gun violence. It's a community health problem. Our social culture, the environment that we live, the way we propagate lives, the way we propagate violence, the way we propagate the culture, misogyny, it affects all of us. When our children die in this country because of gun violence, when adults die, when families are domestic violence survivors, when we've domesticated violence, we all have to take accountability for that. There's no way to say that we want to make a change if we're not on the front line fighting for that change. The resistance from our leaders, the acquiescence of our protected and our elected leaders from these issues, their response to tell us that legislation has to happen before change can happen, the sharing of this burden of the families, fighting alone with no resources, with no accountability, with people telling us that the lives of our children, that the fact that they're dead, that they're dying, that is unfortunate, as if it's just our problem, as if it doesn't affect all of us, as if our children do not go to segregated schools anymore, and those brown children, those underserved families that are dealing with these issues, it does involve them. If we remove them from the situation, all we do is we indoctrinate them with the misogyny that accepts patriarchy as the leader in the function of violence and the authority over our humanity. The fact that medical students on a campus in this country where gun violence and where death and domesticated violence is known and researched and resolved, the fact that you're on the front line of this movement right now brings me hope. It makes me know that you hear us. Even if the people we elect in office, even if the people that say that they are our appointed leaders in our community, if they do not show up for racial justice, if they do not show up to end gun violence, the fact that you are standing here today, the fact that you're doing the work that it takes to mandate change in your industry, that matters. Don't ever let anyone humiliate you. Don't ever let anyone distract you from this work. Do never feel more privileged than you have to understand. With more opportunity comes more responsibility. Never acquiesce on this issue, please. It will touch you, I promise you. When I went through the names and I identified all of those people on all of those pictures, they're not all black people. They're not all children. They weren't all killed in gang violence. And I love the fact that medical representatives call gang violence domesticated violence. It is. Most of these children are not burdens of the system because they're out there committing crime, being violent. They're poor. They're dying because they don't have food. They're dying because they're homeless. They're dying because they're miseducated. They're dying because their names and the collection of data is more important than the outcomes for them. It's time for all of us to be the solution in these matters. I thank you for being on the front line of it. And I honor my nephew today. His name was Andre Dupree Payton. Like I said, he died here on September 26, 2010. I will never get him back. None of the families that are fighting for racial justice that people are tired of hearing. You will never get our children back. But we do demand, and we stand with you today. If you're willing, make this future brighter. Use your privilege to apply that investment in everything that you're doing. Don't be a bystander. Intervene now, please. Thank you.